Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere unexpected. A place where the sand stretches forever. The sun usually scorches your skin, and the air hums with the weight of ancient stories. You've probably heard of the Egyptian desert, right? Endless dunes, camels trudging under a blazing sun, the great pyramids rising like silent guardians from the sand. But tonight is different. Because you're not sweating under the sun. Nope. You're standing there, eyes squinting, as a flake of snow, yes, snow, drifts lazily down and lands on your nose. Go ahead. Let that sink in. Snow. In the Egyptian desert. And let me tell you, you wouldn't last a minute out here. Not with the cold wind cutting through your linen robe like a sharp knife. Not with your sandals slipping on half-frozen sand. And certainly not with that weird, damp chill seeping into your bones. You're shivering already, aren't you? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where and when you're listening to this. Are you curled up in bed? Maybe with a warm drink? Midnight? Or maybe a sleepy afternoon? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sand crunches softly under your feet as you walk. No, let's be honest. You're stumbling a bit. Your toes keep catching on hidden ridges of sand that are suddenly crusted over with a thin layer of frost. It's like nature is trying to prank you. Egypt, of all places, turning into a freezer overnight. You look up, and the sky is that strange shade of steel gray, the kind you only see right before a snowstorm rolls in. In Chicago or Moscow maybe, but not here. A gust of wind stings your cheeks, and you instinctively pull your scarf tighter. Wait, did I say scarf? Well, no, you're probably just clutching the corner of your robe, which, let's be honest, is about as useful as a paper towel in a hurricane. You hear the distant creak of a wooden cart, its wheels groaning like an old man's back as it rolls over the uneven, snowy sand. A trader trudges beside it, muttering curses under his breath. Probably something about how this snow is messing up his spice deliveries. The camels behind him blink slowly, their eyelashes dusted white, looking as confused as you feel. One of them sneezes, sending a fine mist of ice crystals into the air, and you can't help but chuckle. Somewhere deep down, you're kind of impressed. This is the desert's version of a snow globe. But here's the thing. Snow in Egypt? That's not a bedtime story. It's real. It happened in 1979, believe it or not, when a freak weather system swept across the Sahara, turning the golden dunes into pale, icy ridges. A cold front from Europe, they say, dipping down farther than it had any right to. Some historians still argue whether that was truly the first recorded snowfall in the desert, or just the first time someone bothered to write it down. Because, you know, it's not like ancient Egyptians had Instagram to capture the moment. You keep walking, your breath puffing out in little clouds that hang in the air like tiny ghosts. The dunes rise and fall around you, but they feel softer now, like they've been tucked under a downy blanket. You kick a patch of snow, and it flies up in a powdery spray, catching the last rays of a sun that's struggling to shine through the thickening clouds. It's beautiful in a weird, surreal way, like finding an ice cube in your tea after you ordered it hot. You half expect to see a pharaoh in a puffy winter jacket, sipping hot cocoa with a striped candy cane. Your fingers are going numb, though, so you shove them under your arms, your steps slowing as the wind picks up again. A gust swirls around you, tugging at the edges of your robe, making you feel like a human kite about to take off. And you start to wonder, did the ancients ever face something like this? Could you imagine the royal court at Memphis waking up to a dusting of snow on the palace steps? Maybe there was a scribe somewhere, huddled in a corner, furiously scratching onto a papyrus scroll. Dear diary, today it snowed. The thought makes you smile, even as your teeth start to chatter. Because out here, under the wide, impossible sky, the rules seem to bend. Time feels slippery. The desert, normally a place where water is a rare, sacred gift, suddenly plays host to a different kind of blessing. Or maybe it's a curse, depending on how you look at it. And isn't that the funny thing about nature? Just when you think you've got it figured out, it dumps snow on your head in the middle of the Sahara. Your eyes wander to a dune ahead, where the wind has carved a pattern of ridges that look almost like waves frozen in time. And as you step closer, your foot sinks unexpectedly. Oh great, it's a hidden drift. Snow up to your ankles now. Your sandals definitely not designed for this. And there's that damp, slushy feeling creeping in, like you've accidentally stepped into a puddle wearing socks. You shiver again. But there's something magical about it all, isn't there? The cold bites, but the scene is so unexpected that you can't help but feel a little spark of wonder. It's a reminder that the world is full of surprises. Even if those surprises come in the form of a snowflake landing on your sunburned nose. Your breath comes in little puffs now, each one hanging in the air for just a moment before it fades into the strange, cold stillness. The snowflakes, yes, actual snowflakes, keep drifting down, like tiny feathers falling from some cosmic pillow fight happening above the clouds. You stretch out a hand, and a flake lands on your palm, melting almost instantly against your warm skin. It's oddly poetic, really. This tiny, delicate thing disappearing before you can even admire it. Kind of like when you get your hopes up about an ancient recipe for ice cream, and then realize it's made from fermented goat milk and honey. The dunes roll on, quiet as ever, but there's a subtle shift in the air, like the desert itself is holding its breath. You pass by a cluster of low shrubs, their leaves rimmed with frost, and you wonder how they're still standing. Maybe they're like those scrappy plants you see growing in sidewalk cracks. Stubborn little things that refuse to give up. The wind nudges you again, and the sand crunches under your sandals in a way that feels wrong, like walking on a frozen pancake. And it's at this moment you notice something truly bizarre. There's a group of people up ahead. You squint, and through the swirling snow, you make out the shapes of travelers wrapped in thick, layered cloaks, their faces half hidden, their camels plodding forward with that resigned, long-suffering look camels always seem to wear. These traders, they're not just here for sightseeing. They're hauling spices, cloth, and maybe even a little myrrh, all bundled tight against the cold. The snow clings to their turbans, turning them into lumpy, frosty shapes, and the camels' humps look like lumpy snowdrifts on the move. You wonder if they're as confused as you are, but their pace doesn't slow. They just keep going, one foot in front of the other, as if a freak snowstorm in the Sahara is just another Tuesday. And then it hits you. This isn't the first time the desert has seen snow. No, it's rare, but it's happened before. Some historians argue it might have snowed here in 5000 BC, back when the Sahara was greener and wetter. Imagine that, a lush savanna instead of this endless sand. Others say the records are sketchy at best, because, let's face it, ancient scribes weren't exactly in the habit of jotting down weather reports. So yeah, there's a bit of a debate. Some say it's a fluke. Others think it's part of some long, forgotten cycle, a kind of whisper from the past that we've mostly chosen to ignore. You keep walking, the wind tugging at your robe like an impatient child. Your nose is starting to go numb, and there's this weird damp feeling in your shoes, kind of like when you accidentally step into a puddle with your socks on. Not ideal. You glance at the traders again, wondering if they have some secret survival trick. Maybe they've got a stash of camel hair blankets soaked in goat butter or something. Or maybe they're just pretending it's not happening, just like that one friend who insists they're totally fine while shivering in shorts on a winter hike. As you walk, you notice how the snow has started to collect in the dips between dunes, turning them into little craters of cold. A gust of wind swirls around, lifting a fine spray of snow and sand into the air. Tiny grains glinting like glass dust in the muted light. It's kind of mesmerizing, like one of those fancy snow globes you see in gift shops. You half expect a little music box tune to start playing. But there's no music, just the soft, eerie hiss of the wind as it snakes through the dunes. And then, you hear something else. Faint, but definitely there. It's a creaking sound, like an old door swinging open. You turn your head and spot a wagon. Well, more like a wooden cart, its wheels half buried in the snow. A donkey stands nearby, ears flicking, looking deeply unimpressed with the situation. The cart is loaded with baskets, dates, almonds, maybe a few bundles of dried fish, and a man in a striped robe is frantically trying to brush snow off his goods. His hands move fast, his breath puffing like a steam engine. You wonder if he's thinking about how to sell fresh, snow-kissed dates as a luxury product. Honestly, wouldn't put it past him. The donkey brays suddenly, loud and sharp, like it's complaining about the weather. You can't blame it. The poor thing probably didn't sign up for a snowstorm any more than you did. The merchant mutters something under his breath, and you catch a phrase. Something about the gods playing tricks. Yeah, sounds about right. Snow in the desert? That's got cosmic joke written all over it. Your steps slow as you reach a rise in the sand, and from the top, you can see the landscape stretch out before you. A patchwork of white and gold, dunes shimmering under the pale light, and the occasional cluster of travelers huddled together like penguins. The wind hums in your ears, and for a moment, you swear you can hear the distant murmur of ancient voices. Maybe it's just your imagination, or maybe it's the past whispering through the snow, reminding you that history is never quite as simple as it seems. And as you stand there, a snowflake drifts down and lands on your lip. Cool and light, melting into a tiny drop of water that tastes like, well, like nothing, really. Just cold and clean, like the desert is offering you a sip of something rare and fleeting. You let it linger for a moment, then sigh, your breath vanishing into the chilly air. The desert, it seems, has a sense of humor, and tonight you're the punchline. The snow keeps falling, soft and quiet, like the world is being gently erased one flake at a time. Your fingers are tingling now, half from the cold, half from the absurdity of it all. You squint ahead and spot something odd on the horizon. Rows of tall columns rising from the dunes, their tops dusted with white, like someone sprinkled powdered sugar over an ancient cake. You make your way toward them, crunching across the snow-slicked sand, your sandals slipping a little with each step. Honestly, if someone had told you you'd be ice skating your way through an Egyptian temple today, you probably would have laughed. And yet, here you are. The air shifts as you step inside the temple's shadow. It's cooler here, the cold pooling like water in a stone basin. You run your fingers along a column, carved with the faces of gods and pharaohs, and your breath fogs the stone in little puffs, as if the walls themselves are sighing. The hieroglyphs seem to shimmer under the thin layer of frost, their stories frozen in time. You half expect one of the painted gods to blink, or maybe sigh in resignation. Seriously, snow? Again? The temple smells faintly of dust and age, with just a whisper of incense that lingers like a memory. And as you shuffle deeper, your footsteps echo softly, like a secret being passed from one stone to the next. You find a corner where a low table sits, and on it, a few dried lotus petals, frozen stiff and curling at the edges like forgotten paper. A rat scurries by, its little paws slipping on the icy floor, and you can't help but grin. Even the local wildlife is having a bad day. You pause near a faded wall painting, a pharaoh standing tall, arms crossed, looking majestic and very much not dressed for a snowstorm. The irony is thick enough to cut with a dull chisel. Did the priests ever stand here, shivering in their robes, wondering why the gods were throwing snowflakes instead of blessings? Some historians, by the way, still argue whether the ancient Egyptians ever truly experienced snow, or if it was just poetic exaggeration in old texts. There's this one dusty scroll, half burned and half forgotten, that hints at a white rain falling in a year of great omens. But was it snow, ash, or just a scribe's creative flair? The debate's still open. Academics love to argue, don't they? You step back into the courtyard, the light brighter here, bouncing off the snow like a mirror. It makes you squint, and for a moment, everything feels a bit too sharp, like the world's been turned up to high contrast. The statues around you seem to glower down, their stone eyes narrowed against the glare. One of them, a lion-headed goddess, has snow clinging to her mane, and you imagine her shaking it off like a grumpy cat. The thought makes you chuckle, your breath puffing out in another little ghost cloud. The wind stirs again, sending a flurry of snow skittering across the ground, and you tug your robe tighter, feeling like a badly wrapped burrito. Somewhere nearby, a bird caws, a sharp, metallic sound that echoes off the walls, and you glance up to see a lone ibis perched on the temple roof, its feathers ruffled against the cold. Poor thing looks about as thrilled as you feel. Your feet crunch across a patch where the snow has mixed with sand, creating this weird slushy texture that feels like walking on a melting snow cone. You shudder a bit, partly from the cold, partly from the sheer strangeness of it all. The desert was supposed to be dry, hot, relentless. It wasn't supposed to give you a taste of winter wonderland in the middle of June. A flicker of movement catches your eye. An old man, bundled in layers of cloth, trudging across the dunes with a staff. His footprints leave an odd trail, part sand, part slush, part ice. He pauses, turns his face to the sky, and closes his eyes as if he's trying to remember something. Maybe he's thinking of a time when the desert was green, or maybe he's just wondering if he should have stayed in bed today. Can't blame him for that. You watch as the man disappears behind a dune, and you're left standing there, surrounded by frozen sand, ancient stones, and the soft, persistent fall of snow. It's quiet, except for the occasional creak of temple beams settling under the weight of the weather. And you start to wonder, what did this place look like all those centuries ago? Before the sand swallowed it whole, before the snow added its strange shimmering touch. Maybe the desert's just having a little joke at your expense. Or maybe just maybe, it's reminding you that history is full of surprises. After all, who expects snow in Egypt? You shuffle onward, your toes beginning to tingle like someone slipped a handful of ice cubes into your sandals. The dunes ahead gleam under the pale light, their edges softened by snow, almost as if the desert's been smudged with a giant eraser. You can't help but grin a little. It's like Mother Nature got bored of the usual golden palette and decided to try out a winter filter. Somewhere behind you, the wind howls softly, carrying a faint, almost musical whistle through the air. It's the kind of sound that makes you feel small, like the world is whispering secrets in a language you'll never fully understand. As you climb the next dune, huffing a little, because let's be honest, walking on snow-covered sand is basically a workout in a sauna wearing a parka, you spot something unusual. There's a figure kneeling in the snow, their head bowed low, hands pressed to the sand like they're praying. You approach, half curious, half wary, and realize it's a priest. At least, you think it's a priest. The man's wrapped in a heavy robe, its edges frayed and trailing, and he's muttering under his breath. His breath steams in the air, puffing out in ragged little clouds that drift upward like incense. You pause, watching quietly, trying not to interrupt, but the scene feels so surreal that you have to ask yourself, what on earth is he praying for? A warm breeze, a cup of tea, a return to the days when crocodiles didn't have to deal with snowflakes on their noses. You almost want to tap him on the shoulder and ask, but no, Better not. You've seen enough adventure movies to know how that goes. And then, just when you think the moment can't get weirder, a flurry of snow swirls between you. It's light at first, like powdered sugar, but it quickly thickens into a brief, blinding curtain. You blink, and when the air clears, the priest is gone. Vanished. Just a faint imprint left behind, knees pressed into snow, hands cupped in the sand. You blink again, but nope, still gone. The desert, it seems, loves its dramatic exits. You shake your head, trudging forward, and your foot kicks something buried in the snow. A pot, an ancient, cracked jar half filled with what looks like dried figs. You pick one up, and it crumbles between your fingers, dusting the snow with little brown flakes. Somewhere, you're pretty sure, a museum curator just screamed in horror. And hey, maybe they have a point. The desert holds on to its stories like a miser with a secret stash, and here you are, stumbling through them, leaving footprints all over ancient memories. Speaking of memories, there's this old story that flickers into your mind, about the Oracle of Amun at Siwa, a temple far off in the Libyan desert, where Alexander the Great supposedly went for divine guidance. Did it snow there too, you wonder? Some historians think he timed his arrival perfectly, using the shifting sands and unexpected weather patterns to stage a dramatic, almost mystical entrance. Others argue it was just pure luck. Either way, they're still debating it. Centuries later. Classic historians, always ready to argue about whether a snowstorm was destiny or just bad weather. Your stomach grumbles, and you realize it's been hours since you set out. Not that you have much in the way of provisions, unless you count a handful of dates in your pocket that are now half frozen into little brown rocks. You pop one into your mouth anyway, and it tastes like sweet, chewy cardboard. Still, it's something. And as you chew, you notice a trail of footprints leading off between two dunes. Small, light, like someone, or something, was walking barefoot. You follow, partly because you're curious, partly because, let's face it, you've got nothing better to do. The footprints lead you to a small cluster of rocks, half buried in snow. They shimmer faintly, the frost catching the weak sunlight in a way that makes them look almost magical. Like the desert has decided to give you a gift wrapped in ice. You brush off some snow and see faint markings. Ancient graffiti, maybe. Little drawings of boats, camels, spirals, and stars scratched into the stone by hands long gone. It's like someone left a message in a bottle, except, well, it's in the middle of a snow-covered desert. You sit down for a moment, feeling the cold seep through your robe and into your bones, and let your gaze drift. The wind has quieted a little, and all you can hear is the soft hiss of snow landing on sand. It's oddly peaceful, the kind of peace that makes you wonder about all the people who've passed through here. Traders, priests, soldiers, dreamers, and what they thought when they saw the impossible, snow in the desert. Maybe they thought the gods were angry. Maybe they thought it was a blessing. Or maybe they just sighed, pulled their robes tighter, and muttered, "Great. Now what?" You lean back, letting the chill settle into your skin, and for a moment, you just breathe. The snow drifts down, soft and steady, a quiet reminder that even in a world of scorching suns and endless sand, there are moments when the impossible happens. And tonight, you're right in the middle of it. You stretch your legs a little, but the cold has started to settle into your bones, making your joints feel like someone replaced them with creaky old hinges. You stand, brush the snow off your robe, and shuffle onward, your feet leaving uneven tracks in the strange, slushy mix of sand and snow. The wind has picked up again, carrying with it a faint scent, dry, bitter, and oddly metallic. You pause, sniffing the air like a curious dog, and realize it smells like wet stone, like a rainstorm just after it hits hot pavement, Except this isn't pavement. It's the Egyptian desert. You glance around, and that's when you see it. A dark shape rising ahead, half hidden by the swirling snow. You squint, trying to make sense of it, and then it clicks. It's the Great Pyramid of Giza, or at least, it's the top of it. Peeking out from behind a dune, its edges softened by a dusting of snow. You let out a breath, half in awe, half in disbelief. The pyramid, that eternal symbol of sun and sand, standing there under a blanket of ice crystals, like it's been transported to the Arctic for a photo shoot. You shake your head, chuckling softly. If only the ancient architects could see their masterpiece now. Pretty sure they didn't design it for snow removal. You make your way closer, each step feeling like a small victory against the cold. Your sandals are starting to stick to the ground, the wet leather hardening in the chill. You wonder if anyone's ever tried to sled down the side of a pyramid. Probably not. But hey, it's a tempting thought, isn't it? Strap a board to your feet, push off, and hope you don't get launched into the afterlife. As you reach the base of the pyramid, you pause, running your fingers across the stone. The surface feels cold, colder than you expected. Little beads of frost cling to the grooves, highlighting the ancient tool marks left by workers thousands of years ago. You tilt your head back, looking up at the sheer face of the structure, the snow swirling around it like confetti at a very confused birthday party. And for a moment you swear you can almost hear the whispers of the builders, murmuring in the wind, maybe complaining about their frozen hands, maybe laughing at the sheer absurdity of the weather. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a little voice reminds you that snow in the Egyptian desert isn't just rare, it's borderline impossible. Yet here you are. And fun fact, in 2013, Cairo actually got a dusting of snow. The photos went viral, of course, because who wouldn't want to see the pyramids looking like they'd been dropped into a snow globe? But the thing is, it wasn't the first time. There are records, sketchy ones, sure, that hint at snow falling in the region even earlier. Some say 1979, some say even earlier than that. The details get fuzzy, kind of like your brain when you're half asleep at 2 a.m., listening to a story about a snowstorm in the Sahara. Some historians argue it wasn't really snow. Maybe it was sleet, or hail, or just an especially dramatic sandstorm with a lot of attitude. But the point is, no one really agrees. They're still arguing about it, even now. You circle the pyramid's base, your footsteps crunching softly in the snow, and notice little details you might have missed on a warmer day. The way the snow has settled into the cracks between stones, creating tiny rivers of white. The faint marks where generations of visitors have traced their fingers over the ancient carvings. The way the wind hisses through the narrow gaps, almost like the pyramid is sighing under the weight of history. And you know, snow. A gust swirls past you, and for a second, the snow dances in the air, sparkling in the pale sunlight like powdered diamonds. You close your eyes, tilting your face upward, letting a few flakes land on your lashes. They melt instantly, leaving tiny pinpricks of cold that tingle against your skin. You open your eyes, blinking slowly, and for a heartbeat, you imagine the entire desert covered in snow, white dunes rolling on forever, the pyramids standing like ancient sentinels, and the Sphinx. Well, probably sneezing again, poor thing. You keep moving, the cold biting at your fingers, and spot something half buried in the snow near the pyramid's base. You brush away the frost and reveal a small scarab amulet, its surface chipped and worn smooth by time. You hold it up, turning it over in your hand, and for a moment, you feel connected to whoever dropped it. A merchant, maybe, or a scribe, or some long-forgotten traveler who, like you, once stood in this exact spot, marveling at the impossible sight of snow on stone. The thought lingers as you tuck the scarab into your pocket, feeling its weight settle against your side. And you wonder, will someone, centuries from now, stand in this very place, snow crunching under their boots, and wonder who you were. Will they trace your footsteps and laugh at the absurdity of it all? Maybe. Or maybe they'll just sigh, pull their scarf tighter, and keep walking. Because sometimes, the best stories are the ones that catch you off guard. The ones where the desert turns into a snowfield, and the past whispers in your ear like an old friend. And tonight, you're living that story, one shivering step at a time. Your stomach grumbles again, a low, persistent reminder that you're not exactly built for long walks through a desert-turned ice field on an empty belly. You glance around, half hoping for a miracle, like a steaming pot of lentil stew just waiting for you behind the next dune. But all you see are more rippling hills of snow-dusted sand, the landscape stretched thin and quiet, as if the world itself has paused to watch this strange moment unfold. Your steps crunch as you move, and then you hear it, an odd, faint sound, like wood creaking under pressure. You follow it, the snow swirling around your ankles, and there, half hidden behind a dune, is a small fishing boat. You blink, half sure you're imagining things. A fishing boat? Here? In the middle of the desert? It's real, though. Old, weathered, its paint peeling in thin, curling strips. The bow is tilted at an odd angle, buried in the sand, while the stern juts out as if the boat is trying to sail across the dunes. There's a net draped over the side, frozen stiff, little ice crystals clinging to the rope like stubborn memories. You step closer, running your fingers over the wood, and it feels rough, splintered, cold to the touch. A small jar sits nearby, half buried in snow, its contents frozen solid. You pop the lid and sniff, salted fish by the smell of it. Not exactly dinner, but it does make your mouth water a bit. The boat creaks again as the wind tugs at it, and you wonder, how did this get here? Maybe it was dragged inland by a flood long ago. Or maybe a trader, desperate to save his cargo, abandoned it here during a storm, leaving it to become part of the desert's strange, quiet collection of forgotten things. Some say the Nile used to flood in wild, unpredictable ways, spilling far beyond its banks and reaching places you'd never expect. Others argue the boat was part of a ceremonial procession, hauled across the sands as an offering to the gods. The details get murky. Historians still debate it, of course, because why agree on something simple when you can argue about it for centuries? You sit on the edge of the boat for a moment, letting the snowflakes settle in your hair, and you imagine the fishermen who once rowed it, bent over their nets, the air thick with the smell of river mud and fish scales. Did they ever expect their boat to end up like this? Frosted over in the desert, waiting for someone like you to stumble across it and wonder at the absurdity of it all. Your fingers trace the faded carving along the boat's sea, an eye, painted in black and red, staring out at the world. It's meant to protect the vessel, a symbol to ward off bad luck. You give it a little nod, as if to say, thanks for watching out, and then you move on, your footprints trailing behind like a dotted line across the snow. The wind picks up again, swirling sand and snow together into a shimmering haze. You pull your robe tighter, feeling the chills settle into your skin. Your ears sting, and your breath hangs in the air, a foggy little reminder that you're still here, still walking, still part of this strange frozen story. And then, just when you think the desert has run out of surprises, you hear voices, distant, muffled, almost swallowed by the wind, but definitely there. You follow the sound, your footsteps quickening despite the slippery ground. The voices grow louder. Men arguing, maybe, or laughing, or both. And then you see them, a small group of fishermen huddled around a low fire, their faces half hidden by scarves and turbans, the flames crackling in the cold air. They glance up as you approach, their eyes wary, but not unkind. One of them gestures for you to sit, and you do, grateful for the small warmth of the fire licking at your frozen fingers. The men speak in quick, rhythmic bursts, their language flowing like water, sharp staccato syllables mixed with softer rolling sounds. You catch snippets, talk of the river freezing over, of fish trapped in the ice, of how the snow has ruined their nets. One of them holds up a small frozen fish, his eyebrows raised as if to say, "Can you believe this?" You smile and shake your head, because no, you really can't. They pass you a cup, warm, fragrant, filled with something that smells like spiced tea and old stories. You sip, the heat spreading through your chest like a small, contained fire, and for a moment, the snow doesn't seem so cold. The fishermen chuckle at something, and you can't help but laugh too, even though you don't understand the joke. It's enough just to sit here, together, under the impossible snow. You let the warmth seep into your bones, the fire crackling low, the snow falling soft and steady. The fishermen's voices fade into the background, like a lullaby hummed by the desert itself. And as your eyes start to droop, you think, maybe the desert isn't just sand and heat. Maybe it's a place where stories linger, where boats rest on dunes, and fires glow in the snow, and strangers share tea without needing to say a word. The tea's warmth fades slowly, leaving behind a faint, spiced aftertaste that clings to your tongue. You stand again, stretching your arms and wincing as the cold tugs at your joints. The fishermen nod at you, a silent farewell, their faces illuminated briefly by the fire's soft glow before fading back into the swirling snow. You turn, pulling your robe tight around you, and step away, your breath hanging in the air like a thin veil. The dunes rise and fall like quiet waves, the snow draping over them in smooth, undisturbed sheets. Your footprints mark a delicate trail, each step pressing a memory into the sand, a soft crunch, a slight sink, a shiver that runs up your spine. The wind whistles past your ears, and you catch a faint smell of smoke mixed with something earthy, almost sweet. You follow it, curiosity tugging at your sleeve, and soon you come upon a cluster of palm trees, their fronds heavy with snow, drooping like tired dancers at the end of a long performance. And there, nestled among the trees, is a small market, if you can call it that. A few makeshift stalls, their canopies sagging under the weight of snow, and merchants bundled in thick robes, their breath rising in pale clouds. One woman is selling dates, the fruit glistening under a thin layer of frost, like nature's attempt at making candied treats. Another man is hammering at a copper pot, the clinking sound sharp and rhythmic, echoing through the air like a metronome. You wander through the market, the ground underfoot, a strange blend of crunching snow and soft sand. A small child darts past you, giggling as they toss a snowball at a sleepy goat tethered nearby. The goat grunts in protest, shaking its ears and giving you a look that says, "Really? I didn't sign up for this." You stifle a laugh, your breath fogging the air. A stall catches your eye, an elderly man selling small trinkets, scarabs carved from bone, beads of turquoise, little clay figurines. His hands are dark and weathered, the nails rimmed with dust, but he moves with careful precision, laying each item out as if it's the most precious thing in the world. You pick up a small figure of a falcon, its wings spread wide, and feel the cold bite of the stone against your fingertips. The old man smiles, his eyes crinkling, and says something in a language you don't quite understand. But his tone is soft, like a lullaby, and you get the sense he's telling you a story, maybe about Horus, or the sky, or the way the world shifts in small, invisible ways. A breeze stirs the snow, sending a shiver down your spine, and you tuck the figurine back into the man's collection, giving him a small nod of thanks. The market feels like a dream, a place that shouldn't exist, a pocket of warmth in the middle of this surreal, frozen landscape. And you wonder if, centuries ago, traders stood here too, huddled against the cold, selling their wares and sharing quiet jokes as the snow drifted down. Historians, by the way, still debate whether ancient markets ever operated during freak snowfalls like this. Some argue it's impossible. How could merchants set up stalls in such strange conditions? Others suggest that commerce finds a way, no matter the weather. And honestly, after seeing this little market, you're inclined to believe the latter. People are stubborn. They sell things in rain, wind, sandstorms, and apparently snow in the desert. Because life has to go on, right? You wander past a stall selling pottery, bowls and cups glazed in earthy tones, their surfaces catching the light like pools of water. A woman behind the counter is stirring something in a pot, and the smell hits you. Rich, savory, comforting. You step closer, drawn by the scent, and she offers you a small cup. The liquid is warm, thick, spiced with cumin and coriander, and as you sip, you can feel it spreading through your chest like a quiet fire. You let out a soft sigh, and she smiles, her teeth a flash of white in her weathered face. No words are exchanged, but there's an understanding, a kind of shared warmth that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. You linger for a moment, the sounds of the market swirling around you. The clink of coins, the crackle of snow underfoot, the soft murmur of voices rising and falling like waves. The wind hums through the palms, making the fronds sway and clatter together like an ancient percussion instrument. And above it all, the snow keeps falling, soft, steady, quiet as a breath. You step away, the warmth fading, and continue walking, leaving the market behind like a half-remembered dream. Your feet crunch softly, the cold biting at your cheeks, and you wonder, will anyone believe you when you tell them about this place? A market in the snow, under the palm trees in the heart of the Egyptian desert? Probably not. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Some stories are meant to be half believed, half felt, like a snowflake melting on your tongue. A fleeting, perfect thing you can't quite hold on to. And tonight, you're living one of those stories. The snow crunches softly beneath your feet as you leave the market behind, the sounds fading into a muted hush, like a blanket pulled over the world. The air feels thicker now, colder, somehow sharper, as if the desert has decided to fully embrace this strange new role as a winter wonderland. You tuck your hands into your sleeves and hunch your shoulders against the chill, your breath puffing out in little clouds that drift and vanish. The dunes rise and fall ahead, their golden curves now softened by a thin white layer. It's beautiful in a quiet, unsettling way, like the world has forgotten how it's supposed to look. You spot a cluster of date palms standing like dark silhouettes against the pale sky, their fronds drooping under the weight of the snow. And for a moment you wonder if the trees are as confused as you are. After all, they're used to sun and heat, not frost clinging to their leaves like tiny, stubborn pearls. Your fingers tingle as you walk, and the cold seems to sink deeper into your bones. It's the kind of chill that feels personal, like the desert itself is testing you, seeing how far you'll go before turning back. But you keep moving, drawn forward by the strange, quiet beauty of it all. And that's when you hear it, a faint, rhythmic sound, soft but steady, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the dunes. You follow it, curiosity tugging at your heels, and soon you come across a small, makeshift tent. It's patched together from faded cloth, weighed down by stones at the corners, the fabric flapping gently in the wind. Inside, a woman sits hunched over a loom, her hands working quickly, weaving a pattern into a strip of fabric. The snowflakes drift in and melt on the threads, but she doesn't seem to notice. Her fingers move like they're powered by memory, the rhythm so ingrained that the cold and snow can't interrupt it. You step closer, watching in quiet fascination. The pattern she's weaving is intricate. Lines and curves that ripple across the cloth like a secret language. Maybe it's a design passed down through generations. Or maybe it's something she's inventing right now. A pattern born from the strange sight of snow in the desert. The colors are muted. Soft reds, dusty browns, and pale blues that catch the light in unexpected ways. She hums softly as she works, a low, wordless tune that blends with the whisper of the wind. For a moment, the world feels smaller, just you, the woman, and the snow swirling quietly around you. You imagine ancient weavers like her, huddled under tents centuries ago, creating patterns that told stories of the Nile's floods, of harvest moons, of distant traders who brought strange spices and tales from across the sea. Did they ever weave snow into their stories? You doubt it, but maybe they should have. Some historians, by the way, debate whether desert weavers ever had to adapt to sudden cold snaps like this. There's an old scroll that mentions a white veil falling over the dunes during a year of strange omens, but it's so cryptic that no one agrees if it meant snow, sandstorms, or just an overactive imagination. Academics, as always, love a good argument. You smile at the thought. Some things never change, no matter the century. The woman doesn't look up, but her hands slow slightly, as if she senses you there. You wonder if she's part of the past or the present, a living person, or maybe just a memory stitched into the fabric of this desert. You hesitate, then quietly step back, letting the snow cover your footprints as you move away. The dunes stretch on, the snow settling in soft, smooth drifts that gleam faintly under the pale sky. Your feet sink with each step, the cold biting at your toes, and you feel that odd, disconnected sense of time stretching and looping around you. The desert feels both ancient and brand new, as if the snow has pressed pause on the world and given you a glimpse into something hidden, something you weren't supposed to see. A sudden gust of wind kicks up, sending a flurry of snow swirling around your face. You squint against it, pulling your robe tighter, and when it clears, you see something ahead. A set of footprints leading off into the dunes. They're faint, half filled by snow, but still visible. You pause, your breath catching slightly, and feel a quiet pull in your chest. Who walked here before you? Were they searching for shelter, for answers, or just trying to make it to the next market before the snow erased the path? You step forward, following the tracks, the snow creaking underfoot, the cold sinking deeper. The wind hums around you, carrying whispers of old stories, of traders and priests, of lost travelers and forgotten names. You wonder if they ever imagined their stories would still echo here, centuries later, drifting softly on the snow. And as you walk, you realize something strange. The snow isn't just falling, it's sticking. The desert, this place of endless heat and sand, is holding on to it. Just for a little while, maybe. Just long enough for you to remember that sometimes the world likes to surprise you. The footprints lead you forward, weaving a faint, winding path through the dunes, like a quiet invitation from the past. Each step feels a little heavier now, the snow thickening underfoot, crunching with that strange, satisfying sound that's half crisp, half squish. Your toes have gone numb again. Great. And you're starting to think you'd trade your last date for a decent pair of boots. Or maybe just some fuzzy socks. Or a hot cup of tea. The footprints veer suddenly to the right, curving around a rise in the sand. And as you follow, the wind shifts, carrying a scent that makes you stop in your tracks. It's faint, barely there, but it's unmistakable. Smoke. Not the thin, airy smoke of a small campfire, but something thicker, heavier. Like wood burning slowly, mixed with a hint of spices. You pause, tilting your head, trying to place it. It's warm, rich, almost comforting, in the way that a stew bubbling on the stove makes a house feel like a home. You crest the dune, and there it is. A small group of people huddled around a fire pit, the flames flickering low, casting shadows on their faces. They're roasting something, flatbreads maybe, pressed against hot stones. The smell of cumin and coriander mingles with the smoky air, and your stomach lets out an audible growl that you hope no one heard. One man glances up, raises an eyebrow, and smirks like he did. Busted. You shuffle closer, the snow crunching under your steps, and the group makes space for you. No words exchanged, just a quiet nod, a universal language of cold and hunger. Someone hands you a piece of bread, warm and slightly charred, and you take a bite. It's simple, a little gritty with sand, but the warmth spreads through you like sunlight in your chest. You chew slowly, savoring the heat, the way the spices tickle your tongue, and you wonder if you've ever tasted anything better. Hunger, after all, has a way of turning even the most basic food into a feast. As you sit, you glance around and notice something. Small clay jars, half buried in the sand, their rims frosted with snow. One of the jars is cracked open, revealing a sticky amber-colored paste. Someone dips a piece of bread into it and gestures for you to try. You do, and the taste is unexpected. Sweet, tangy, with a hint of citrus and something else. Something smoky. It hits you. Fermented date syrup, spiced with resin and herbs. A recipe older than some of the pyramids, probably. The group watches you with quiet amusement, as if waiting to see if you'll wince or smile. You grin, your teeth catching the firelight, and they chuckle softly, a sound that blends with the crackling of the flames. One of the men, his beard thick and dusted with snow, starts speaking. Low, rhythmic, almost like a chant. You catch a few words, stories of travelers who once crossed the desert in caravans, their camels laden with spices, gold, and silks, of sandstorms that swallowed whole cities, leaving only whispers behind. And of snow, yes, snow, that fell in a year of strange omens, when the stars danced in unfamiliar patterns and the Nile itself seemed to shiver. You listen, half lost in the cadence, the firelight flickering across faces that seem both ancient and ageless. Historians, you remember, still argue about those old tales, whether the stories of snow were real or just poetic metaphors. Some say the scribes exaggerated, turning a bit of frost into a grand tale to impress their patrons. Others believe the desert has always held these secrets. Rare but real, slipping into memory only to be doubted later by people who've never seen snow on sand. The fire crackles, and a snowflake lands on your cheek, cold and sharp, melting into a tiny, perfect droplet. You glance up, watching the snow fall in slow, lazy spirals, and you wonder if the people around you feel it too. The quiet magic of this moment, the strangeness of warmth and snow sharing the same space. The group begins to pack up, folding blankets, tying up bundles and stamping out the fire. One man lifts a clay jar, tucking it into a leather satchel, as if it's the most precious thing in the world. Another woman adjusts her headscarf, the fabric dusted with snow, her hands moving with practiced ease. They nod at you again, an unspoken farewell, and move off into the dunes, their shapes swallowed quickly by the falling snow, leaving only a faint trail of footprints behind. You sit there for a moment longer, the fire's warmth fading from your skin, and you realize you're shivering again. The cold has crept back in, sneaky and insistent, wrapping itself around your ribs, your fingers, your toes. You pull your robe tighter and stand, the snow crunching under your feet, the wind humming in your ears. The footprints of the travelers are already fading, filling in with snow, the story dissolving into the dunes. And as you turn to walk on, you feel it again, that quiet sense of awe. The desert is supposed to be dry, hot, relentless. But tonight, It's something else entirely. A place where fire and snow, past and present, hunger and warmth, all coexist for just a little while. And as the flakes drift down, soft and steady, you know you're part of that story now, your breath mingling with the whispers of the wind. Your breath comes in shallow puffs now, each exhale a small, misty ghost that vanishes before it can find a story to tell. You tug your robe tighter, your fingers stiff and a little clumsy, the cold gnawing at them like a small, persistent animal. The snow is deeper here, soft, powdery, and oddly quiet underfoot, as if the desert itself has learned how to muffle its usual crunch. You push forward, your steps slow but steady, and there's something about the way the dunes curve, the way the wind hums, that makes you feel like you've wandered into a dream. Or maybe a forgotten chapter of someone else's life. A flicker of movement catches your eye, and you stop, narrowing your gaze through the gently falling snow. There, half buried in the sand, sticking out like a stubborn memory, is the broken edge of a pottery jar. You brush away the snow, your fingers tingling with cold, and the jar's surface glimmers faintly in the pale light. Painted onto it, faded but still visible, is the shape of a fish. Not just any fish, a tilapia, the kind they used to catch in the Nile, back when the river was full and life seemed simpler, or at least less frozen. You smile a little, imagining some long-ago fisherman packing up his catch, never dreaming that centuries later, you'd be standing here, staring at his lunchbox frozen in the sand. And then, as you turn the shard in your hands, you notice something, a faint, almost invisible crackle of lines etched into the clay. A map, maybe, or just the natural aging of the pot. Hard to say. Historians still argue about these things, of course. Some say ancient Egyptians etched simple maps onto jars as a way of marking trade routes. Like early GPS, only, without satellites or annoying voice prompts. Others insist it's just coincidence, a random pattern in the glaze. You roll the shard between your fingers and smile, because either way, it's a little piece of the past you didn't expect to find. You tuck the shard into your robe and keep walking, the snowflakes landing gently on your eyelashes, making you blink like a sleepy cat. The wind shifts, carrying a faint sound. Soft, rhythmic, almost like music. You follow it, your steps quicker now. Curiosity pulling you along like an invisible thread. And there, tucked between two dunes, is a small group of people huddled close, their heads bowed, their hands clapping softly in time. Someone is singing, low and steady, a melody that winds through the air like smoke. The words are unfamiliar, but the tune feels ancient, like something carried on the wind for 1,000 years, waiting for ears to catch it. You stand at a distance, watching, listening, the snow swirling gently around you. The song rises and falls, a lullaby for the desert, a hymn for the unexpected snow. One of the singers looks up, their eyes meeting yours across the quiet space. And for a heartbeat, you feel like you've been invited into a secret. A warmth spreads in your chest, not from the cold fire of survival, but from the soft glow of belonging, even if only for a moment. The song fades into the wind, leaving only the hush of snow falling onto sand. You move on, the melody still echoing faintly in your mind. And soon you find yourself near a cluster of rocks, half buried under the drifts. They rise like ancient bones, weathered by time, the edges softened by frost. You run your hand over one, feeling the rough texture beneath your numb fingertips, and notice something scratched into the surface. A spiral, simple and small, half hidden by ice. It's a shape you've seen before, on old pottery, in ancient carvings, even in the way the wind curves through the dunes. It feels like a symbol of something, a cycle maybe, or the passage of time. Or maybe it's just a doodle from someone who got bored, During a long watch in the cold, the wind hums louder now, tugging at your robe, making you shiver. A snowflake lands on your lip, melting instantly, tasting faintly of dust and salt. You glance up, watching the sky, soft gray and heavy with more snow. And you wonder, how long will it last? How long before the desert remembers it's supposed to be hot and dry and endless, not this strange, cold mirror of another world? The thought makes you chuckle softly. This desert, full of surprises. It's like nature decided to have a little fun, to remind everyone that even the most predictable places can surprise you when they feel like it. You shake your head, your breath rising in a small, contented sigh, and keep walking, your steps soft and slow, leaving faint prints behind that the snow is already working to erase. The dunes stretch on, the snow falling thicker now, each flake a tiny, perfect star. And as you move forward, the air feels quieter, softer, like the desert is tucking itself in for the night. The world feels small and strange and beautiful all at once, and you feel like you're part of it just for this moment. A figure moving through the snow, listening to the whispers of the past, and leaving a few quiet footprints of your own. The wind shifts again, brushing across your face like a cold, invisible hand, and you tuck your robe tighter, feeling the fabric bunch at your waist. It's heavier now, damp from the melting snow, clinging to your skin like a soggy towel. You shiver, but you keep moving. One step at a time, your footprints soft and shallow in the drifts. The dunes rise on either side, quiet as ever, their slopes smooth and unbroken, save for the delicate lace of snow tracing their curves. You glance up and see it, a single, lonely acacia tree, standing like a sentinel in the middle of the desert, its bare branches dusted with frost. The bark is dark and cracked, rough under your fingertips as you reach out to steady yourself. A small, stubborn bird perches on a branch, feathers puffed against the cold, and it tilts its head as if to say, "You too, huh?" The two of you sit there for a breath, sharing the quiet. And then the bird flutters off, leaving behind a faint, whispering rustle in the frozen air. The desert stretches out ahead, wide and pale, the snow blurring the edges of the world. It feels almost endless, like you've stepped into a painting where time doesn't move. And yet, there are hints, little clues, that life still lingers here. A set of hoofprints, delicate and precise, winding across a dune. A piece of fabric caught on a thorn, fluttering like a forgotten flag. A single, perfect pomegranate, half buried in the snow, its skin split open to reveal ruby-red seeds that glisten in the pale light like tiny jewels. You stoop to pick up the pomegranate, the cold biting into your fingers, and for a second, you imagine biting into it. Sharp, sweet, tangy, a burst of flavor against the cold. Did you know the ancient Egyptians loved pomegranates? They believed the fruit was a symbol of prosperity and rebirth, and they'd tuck them into tombs, hoping to carry a little taste of sweetness into the afterlife. Some scholars still argue whether pomegranates were native to Egypt or imported through trade routes. And honestly, you're too cold to care much about the details. The fruit is beautiful, simple, and it makes you smile. You tuck it into your robe, feeling its weight settle there. A small reminder that even in the coldest, strangest places, life has a way of offering you something unexpected. As you walk, your steps slow, and you notice the ground beneath your feet has changed. What was once soft sand now feels harder, rougher, like stone. You glance down and realize you're walking on what looks like the floor of an ancient road, the stones just barely visible beneath the snow. A road out here? You shake your head, a soft, breathy laugh escaping as you imagine ancient traders trudging along this very path, their sandals slipping in a rare desert snowstorm. muttering under their breath about the cold and the cost of cinnamon. Some historians believe old trade routes crisscrossed this land, connecting distant cities and cultures like invisible threads woven through the sand. Others think these roads are just the remnants of old caravan paths, worn into the earth by the weight of footsteps and the passage of time. You pause, letting your fingers brush across the stones, feeling the texture, smooth in places, rough in others. It's humbling, really. You're walking where others once did, centuries ago, long before you, long before the world became what it is now. A small drift of snow swirls across the road, and you watch it spiral, weightless and slow, like it's dancing to a rhythm only the desert can hear. The sound of the wind fills your ears, soft and steady, and for a moment you imagine it as a voice, low, patient, telling stories of the people who once walked here. Merchants with baskets of spices, pilgrims seeking shrines, families chasing hope across the sand. Your steps grow slower, the cold sinking deeper, wrapping itself around your ankles, your hands, your chest. It's the kind of cold that makes you feel like you're being gently folded into the landscape, like you're part of the desert now, a figure in a story someone might tell in 100 years. Remember that time it snowed in the Egyptian desert? Some fool was out there, walking through it, just taking it all in. You grin at the thought, the humor a quiet flicker of warmth in your chest. The snow continues to fall, soft and steady, coating the world in its delicate hush. And as you walk, the road beneath your feet begins to fade, swallowed by the dunes and the snow, until it's just you again, alone with the wind and the falling flakes. The footprints you left behind are already disappearing, smoothed over by the steady hand of the weather, as if you were never here at all. But you were. You are. You're part of this strange, fleeting moment. One breath, one step, one story in the endless, quiet stretch of the desert. Your steps slow as the world seems to hold its breath. The snow drifts down in lazy, swirling patterns, catching on your lashes and softening the harsh lines of the desert. Each flake feels like a tiny whisper from the sky, cool against your skin, barely there, yet somehow persistent. You glance down and realize your footprints are fading fast, swallowed by the soft hush of snow, as if the desert is quietly erasing any evidence that you were ever here. It's humbling, really, like the sand is reminding you that no one leaves a permanent mark, not even you, not even the greatest of pharaohs. A shape begins to take form in the distance, dark, low, stretching out like a long shadow across the white landscape. As you get closer, it resolves into a line of stone blocks, half buried in snow, their edges rounded by time and weather. You crouch down, brushing the snow away with your hands, and see the faintest traces of carvings. Worn, almost invisible, but still there. Symbols, lines, maybe even a name. You can't quite make it out, but you imagine it could be the foundation of a long-forgotten building, a temple maybe, or a marketplace where merchants once haggled over spices and cloth. You smile, thinking of some ancient trader arguing about the price of frankincense while snow drifts quietly down outside. It's funny. Historians still argue about whether snow ever really interrupted ancient trade routes, or if those stories were just embellishments added to old records for dramatic flair. Some say the white rain mentioned in a few scattered texts was snow, a sign of divine favor or a warning of change. Others insist it was just heavy hail, or even volcanic ash drifting across the desert from a far-off eruption. You shake your head, a small, amused puff of breath curling into the cold air. The desert doesn't seem to care much for academic debates. It just keeps shifting, changing, telling its own stories in the language of wind and sand. You stand, brushing the snow from your hands, and glance up at the sky. It's a strange color now, soft gray, with streaks of pale gold, where the sun tries to break through. The light catches the snow in a way that makes it sparkle, each flake a tiny diamond glinting in the air. You reach out, trying to catch one, but it melts the instant it touches your skin. They're stubborn like that, aren't they? Fleeting, delicate, impossible to hold. The wind shifts again, carrying with it a sound. Soft, distant, almost like the faint ringing of metal. You pause, listening, and there it is again. A rhythmic clink, 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 steady and slow. You follow the sound, your feet sinking into the snow, the air sharp and cold in your lungs. It leads you to a small figure, hunched over a low workbench, hammering at a strip of metal. The man is bundled in layers of cloth, his hands bare and red from the cold, moving with practiced ease as he shapes the metal into something you can't quite see yet. He looks up briefly as you approach, his eyes narrowing against the glare of the snow, and gives you a small nod. No words, no questions, just an unspoken understanding that sometimes, in a world as strange as this, you simply share the space and the moment. You watch as he works, the sparks flying briefly, fading into the snow like fireflies. The metal sings under his hammer, a sharp, clean sound that cuts through the quiet, and you wonder what he's making. A tool? A trinket? A memory? You don't ask. Some things are better left to wonder. The wind tugs at your robe, making it billow around your legs like a worn flag. The snowflakes catch in the folds, dusting you in pale specks of cold. The man keeps working, the clink of his hammer steady. A kind of music that seems to blend with the soft, shivering hush of the wind. You stand there for a while, letting the rhythm seep into you, a quiet pulse against the cold. Eventually, you move on, your steps light and slow. The snow crunches underfoot, the dunes stretching out before you, like a vast, frozen ocean. The world feels softer now, like someone turned down the volume and dimmed the lights, leaving only the gentle, persistent fall of snow and the whisper of your own breath. And as you walk, you think about how strange it is that you're here, in a place where sand and snow mingle, where stories lie half buried in the dunes, waiting for someone to stumble across them and listen. You wonder how many of those stories have been lost, erased by the wind and the snow and the endless, shifting sands. And you wonder, too, how many are still waiting, hidden, quiet, patient. Your footsteps fade behind you, the snow filling them in, like the desert itself is tucking you away. Gently, quietly, into its vast, timeless embrace. The snowflakes drift slower now, as if the sky itself is getting tired. Each flake taking its time to float down, pause for a breath, and settle quietly onto the dunes. You walk in their soft fall, your breath steady, your steps gentle, the world around you dim and muted. The cold is still there, of course, biting at your cheeks, pricking at your fingers. But it's become something familiar now, a quiet companion rather than a sharp intruder. Your path takes you toward a low, rocky outcrop rising from the sand like the spine of some ancient buried beast. The stones are dusted with snow, the ridges softened, their sharp edges blurred by the frost. As you draw closer, you notice small carvings etched into the surface, worn symbols, shallow and faint, but still clinging to the rock like memories that refuse to be forgotten. Circles, lines, tiny dots arranged in patterns you can't quite decipher. A map, a calendar, or maybe just a bored traveler's doodle. Historians still argue about that, of course. Some say these desert carvings are records of celestial events, markings of eclipses, star patterns, strange comets streaking across the sky. Others think they were simple markers for water sources or trade routes, practical notes carved by those who needed to survive, not leave behind grand mysteries. The truth? Well, it's probably a little of both. Isn't it always? You trace a spiral with your finger, the cold stone rough beneath your touch, and feel a small shiver. Not from the cold, but from the quiet, subtle weight of time itself. How many hands have touched this same stone? How many eyes have squinted at these symbols, wondering what they meant? The thought lingers, soft and heavy, as you step back, letting the snow cover the carvings once again, as if tucking them in for the night. The wind hums, steady and low, and you find yourself moving on, your footsteps crunching in the snow, the sound swallowed almost immediately by the dunes. A low hill rises ahead, and as you crest it, you spot a small, weathered building, a shrine, maybe, or the crumbling remains of an old rest stop for weary travelers. Its walls lean slightly, half sunken into the sand, the doorway framed by weathered stone, and above it, a faded carving of a lotus flower, its petals barely visible under a dusting of snow. You step inside, and the air feels heavier, warmer somehow, like the walls are holding on to memories and stories and whispers that the wind can't quite steal away. The floor is uneven, half buried in drifts, but in the center there's a small altar. Just a flat stone, really, with a few offerings still resting on it. A cracked bowl, a cluster of dried herbs, brittle and pale. A little clay figurine, shaped like a fish, its details worn smooth by time and touch. You pick it up, feeling the weight of it in your palm, and imagine someone leaving it here centuries ago, hoping for safe passage, a good catch, or maybe just a little luck. A soft sound draws your attention, a faint dripping, slow and rhythmic. You glance toward the back of the shrine, where a thin trickle of water seeps from a crack in the wall, forming a tiny shimmering pool in the hollowed-out floor. Snowmelt, probably, finding its way through the stone, a small gift from the storm above. You kneel, cupping your hands to catch a bit of the water, and sip. It's cold, clean, with a faint mineral taste, like the desert itself is offering you a drink, a quiet reminder that even in the harshest places, there's life. You sit back, letting the quiet of the shrine wrap around you, the snow still falling softly outside. Your thoughts drift, loose and gentle, wandering to the people who must have once gathered here. Did they light lamps in the corners, their flickering flames casting long shadows across the walls? Did they whisper prayers, tell stories, share meals? Maybe someone once sat exactly where you are now, warming their hands over a small fire, listening to the crackle of the flames as the snow drifted down outside, just like it is now. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound of the dripping water, the faint sigh of the wind, and the soft fall of snow weave together into a kind of lullaby. It's almost like the desert is humming to itself, a quiet, timeless tune that soothes you even as the cold seeps into your bones. And then you stand, slowly, brushing the snow from your robe, and step back out into the dunes. The shrine fades behind you, swallowed by the snow and the shifting sands, and the world feels wide and quiet once again. You take a deep breath, the cold sharp and clean in your lungs, and keep walking, your footprints soft and shallow, already fading in the soft, persistent fall of snow. You move slowly now, your steps sinking deeper into the snow with each careful stride. The desert stretches out before you, soft and white, the dunes shaped into smooth, rolling hills by the wind's steady hand. It feels like walking across the surface of a dream, familiar yet strange, real yet somehow otherworldly. The sky hangs low and heavy, the clouds layered like thick blankets, and the snowflakes drift down in lazy spirals, quiet as a sigh. Your hands are stiff with cold, your robe damp against your skin, but there's a strange, stubborn warmth inside you, a flicker of wonder that keeps you moving forward. Each step feels like a small act of defiance, a quiet declaration that yes, you're here, in this impossible place, and you're not done walking yet. Ahead, you spot something unusual, an odd shape half buried in the snow, its edges curved and gleaming faintly under the dim light. As you approach, the details sharpen. A large, shallow bowl made of polished copper, its surface dulled patine but still catching hints of gold and red where the light touches it. You crouch, brushing the snow away, and notice faint etchings along the rim. Symbols you don't recognize, a pattern of lines and dots that loops in a slow, deliberate curve. You turn the bowl gently, and something shifts beneath it. A small pile of dried figs, their skins wrinkled and pale in the cold, as if someone left them here as an offering. A soft laugh escapes your lips, the sound surprising in the quiet, and you shake your head. Figs in the snow. It's like a joke the desert is playing on you, one you're not sure you fully understand. The copper bowl feels heavier than it looks, and as you lift it, a thought flickers through your mind. Could this have been part of a feast, set out long ago for travelers seeking shelter? Historians still argue, you recall, about how desert traders prepared for sudden weather shifts, whether they packed extra food and supplies for storms, or simply trusted in luck and resilience. Some say they'd huddle under makeshift tents, sharing dates and honey, while others insist the stories of such gatherings are just romantic tales, added later to make the harsh reality sound a little softer. You hold the bowl for a moment longer, feeling the weight of it in your hands, the cold biting at your skin, and then gently set it back in its place, tucking the figs beneath it as if to protect them from the snow. The wind swirls around you, lifting a flurry of flakes into the air, and you tuck your hands into your sleeves, shivering. Your breath puffs out in small clouds, fading into the vast, quiet space. The dunes stretch on, soft and endless, the snow smoothing their edges into gentle curves. Your feet crunch softly as you walk, and you catch glimpses of other things half buried in the snow. A shard of pottery here, the broken handle of a jar there, the faint outline of what might have once been a woven basket. It's like the desert is revealing its secrets, one piece at a time, offering up a quiet story for anyone patient enough to look. You pause by a low ridge and notice something unexpected, a scattering of small, round seeds, dark against the white snow. Pomegranate seeds, maybe, or date pits, left behind by someone long ago. They glisten like tiny frozen stars, a quiet reminder that life clings on, even in the most unexpected places. The wind hums, low and steady, carrying the faint scent of something earthy. Wet stone, sand, and the sharp, almost metallic edge of the cold. You take a slow breath, letting the chills settle in your chest, and glance up at the sky. The clouds have started to shift, the light softening to a pale gold that glows against the snow, turning the dunes into slow, rolling waves of light and shadow. You feel small, standing there in the middle of it all, but it's a good kind of small, the kind that reminds you the world is vast, and you're just one story in a sea of stories, each one folding gently into the next. You let the thoughts settle, warm and quiet, and you keep walking, the snow soft beneath your feet, the cold a steady companion at your side. And as you walk, you think about how strange it is that snow has a way of making the desert feel tender, like it's been tucked under a soft blanket, its sharp edges smoothed away, its harshness softened just enough to let you see the stories hidden beneath. You smile, your breath curling into the cold air, and for a moment, it feels like you could stay here forever, walking through this strange, gentle snowfall, the desert and the snow folding together into one quiet, impossible dream. The desert feels softer now, quieter somehow, as if the snow has muffled the world into a kind of gentle hush. Your footsteps leave shallow impressions in the pale crust, and as you move forward, the wind picks up again. Just a whisper at first, then a low, steady hum that carries a faint, almost metallic scent, like old coins or the edge of a storm. You pass a low dune and pause. There, half buried in the snow, is something strange. At first glance, it looks like a rock, but as you brush the snow away, you feel the smooth, cool surface of metal. A bronze disc, tarnished and weathered, its edge etched with faint markings. You turn it over in your hands, the cold biting into your skin, and catch a glimpse of what might once have been an inscription, though the letters have worn thin, their meaning slipping away like a whisper, lost in the wind. You wonder who left it here. A merchant? A soldier? A priest with a message too important to trust to memory? Some historians argue that objects like this were used as trade tokens, or even as ceremonial markers in ancient rituals, though others scoff at the idea, calling it romantic speculation. The truth, as always, is somewhere in between. Fragments of stories tangled up with facts, waiting for someone like you to stumble across them and wonder. You tuck the disc into your robe, a small weight against your side, and keep walking. The dunes stretch ahead, pale and quiet, the snow falling in soft, endless sheets. It's a strange kind of beauty, this mix of heat and cold, sand and snow, time and memory. You shiver, but it's not entirely unpleasant. The cold has settled into your bones, sure, but it's also wrapped you up in this strange, peaceful stillness, like the world has slowed down just for you. Your gaze drifts, and there, a little ways off, you spot a cluster of stones arranged in a circle, small, irregular shapes piled carefully atop one another. You step closer, and as you brush the snow away, you realize it's a fire pit. Charcoal still clings to the edges of the stones, dark against the pale sand, and a few half-burned sticks lie in the center, their ends blackened and split. You kneel, fingers tracing the cold, rough surfaces, and imagine the warmth that once glowed here. The crackling of flames, the soft pop of sap in the wood, the glow casting long shadows on the dunes. You sit for a moment, letting the imagined heat settle into your skin, and wonder about the people who once gathered here. Traders, perhaps, sharing stories over steaming cups of tea. Nomads wrapped in heavy cloaks, their laughter rising into the cold night. Or maybe a family, huddled close, passing around a small pot of stew, while the wind howled outside their tent. You can almost hear them now, soft voices, the clink of pottery, the low, rhythmic hum of a song half remembered. The details blur, but the feeling lingers, a quiet sense of connection, a reminder that even in the middle of nowhere, you're never truly alone. A gust of wind sweeps past, scattering snow across the stones, and you watch as the little fire pit disappears, swallowed by the storm. Just like that, it's gone, tucked back into the desert's memory, waiting for the next traveler to uncover. You stand, brushing snow from your robe, and glance back at your own footprints, already fading, the edges softened by the falling snow. The wind hums again, carrying a faint scent, smoke maybe, or the dry mineral tang of stone warmed by the sun, though the sun itself seems distant now, just a pale smudge behind the thick clouds. You breathe in deep, the cold stinging your lungs, and you realize how easy it is to lose your sense of direction out here. The dunes blur together, the snow smoothing every edge, every path. You pause, listening, and for a moment, there's nothing but the quiet, a soft, endless hush that fills the world. And then, from somewhere in the distance, you hear it. A faint, rhythmic drumming, not loud, not urgent, just a slow, steady beat, like someone tapping a hand on a hollow surface. You tilt your head, squinting through the snow, but you see nothing. Just dunes, snow, and the pale, low sky. Still, the sound is there, steady, insistent, woven into the fabric of the landscape. You smile, a little shiver running down your spine, and start walking toward it, your steps soft, your breath quiet, the snow swirling gently around you. You're not sure where you're going or what you'll find, but that's the thing about the desert, isn't it? It's full of surprises, stories half buried in the sand, waiting for someone to listen. And tonight, you're the one who's listening. The drumming grows louder as you walk, each soft thump carried on the wind, weaving into the hush of falling snow. It's not constant, more like a slow, deliberate heartbeat that echoes off the dunes. Your feet crunch through the thin crust of ice, the sound blending with the rhythm until you can't tell where your steps end and the drumming begins. You crest a small rise, and there it is, a gathering of people sitting in a wide circle around a low fire, their figures dark against the pale glow. They're bundled in thick robes, hoods pulled tight against the cold, and their hands move slowly over simple drums, bowls maybe, or empty water jars turned on their sides. The sound is soft, steady, like the pulse of the desert itself, and it wraps around you as you step closer, a quiet invitation to sit, to listen, to simply be. You settle at the edge of the circle, the snow pressing cold against your knees, and feel the fire's warmth lick at your face. Gentle, not enough to chase away the chill, but enough to remind you what warmth feels like. The flames crackle softly, sending up little puffs of smoke that drift into the night, curling around the drummers like a lazy silver ribbon. The sound is hypnotic, slow and steady, rising and falling like breath, and you let it fill your ears, your chest, your whole body, until even your shivering seems to fall into its rhythm. One of the drummers looks up, his eyes catching the firelight, dark and bright all at once, like coals just starting to glow. He doesn't speak, but his gaze holds yours for a moment, steady and calm, as if to say, yes, you're here now. This is part of your story too. You watch the others, some young, some old, their faces lined with age or smooth with youth, their eyes half closed in quiet concentration. Their hands move with easy, practiced grace, tapping out a rhythm older than any empire, any king. You wonder if the ancient Egyptians drummed like this, if they sat around fires like this, in the middle of nowhere, sharing warmth and rhythm against the cold. Some scholars argue that music was part of every desert journey, that traders carried simple drums and flutes, using the sounds to pass the long, lonely nights. Others say that's just a romantic notion, that the harshness of travel left little time for music. But sitting here, you feel the truth in your bones. Sometimes, music isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. A heartbeat in the dark. A reminder that you're not alone. The snow keeps falling, soft and persistent, catching in the folds of robes, settling on the tops of the drums like a thin layer of powdered sugar. One of the drummers pauses, brushing the snow away with a casual sweep of their hand, and the rhythm never falters, just a small, steady thrum that fills the air like a lullaby. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound wrap around you, warm and quiet, and you imagine the dunes swaying to the beat, the ancient stones tapping in time, the snow itself falling just a little more slowly to match. The fire pops, sending a spark up into the night, and the drummer's hands slow, the sound fading until there's just the soft, steady hiss of the wind and the snow landing gently on the sand. One by one they rise, moving with quiet grace, gathering their drums and wrapping themselves tighter against the cold. A few nod to you in passing, a silent acknowledgement, and then they drift away into the dunes, their figures swallowed by the falling snow, leaving behind only the faintest warmth in the air and the fading echo of the beat in your chest. You sit there for a long moment, the fire crackling low, the snow melting slowly into the coals. The world feels soft and slow, like a story slipping into the space between dreams. Your breath moves in time with the wind, and you feel the quiet weight of the moment settle over you. A small, strange, beautiful thing that you'll carry with you long after the snow is gone. You stand, brushing the snow from your sleeves, and take one last look at the fire pit, now just a dark smudge in the pale sand. The drumming has faded, but you can still feel it in your bones, a quiet pulse that hums beneath your skin. You turn and walk on, your footprints soft and shallow in the snow, your heart full of something you can't quite name. And somewhere behind you, the dunes shift, the snow falls, and the wind whispers a song that only the desert knows. You walk on, the dunes rising and falling like the slow breath of some ancient creature, the snow smoothing every curve, every hollow, until the world feels like a soft, endless sea of white and gold. Your footsteps sink just enough to leave a mark, but already the wind is beginning to erase them, gently brushing away the edges, like an artist smudging the lines of a sketch. The air feels heavier now, the sky dimming into a muted gray that presses down on your shoulders. The snow has a different quality, thicker, wetter, clinging to your robe and melting in slow, cold streaks down your sleeves. You pull the fabric tighter around you, the weight of it damp and heavy. But you keep walking. There's nowhere in particular to go, no destination you're chasing. Just the quiet pull of the desert, the snow falling steady, the strange beauty of it all carrying you forward. A low shape rises ahead, dark against the pale sky. A ruined wall, crumbled and half buried, its stones frosted with ice. You approach slowly, your breath coming in small, visible puffs, and pause to take it in. The wall is ancient, though who built it or why is impossible to say. It's just there. A reminder, maybe, that people have always tried to leave their mark on the desert, no matter how often the wind and sand try to erase them. You brush the snow from a patch of stone and see faint carvings, lines, spirals, a few symbols that might once have told a story. A cartouche, a name. The details are so worn, so faded by time, that it's hard to tell. Historians would argue, of course. Some might say this was a boundary marker, others a shrine, others still just a collapsed storehouse for grain or oil. And then there are the fringe theories. Always someone ready to insist it's evidence of an ancient lost civilization, a place where gods once walked, or maybe even proof of a connection to distant lands across the sea. You smile a little at the thought. Funny how snow has a way of turning even the simplest ruin into something mysterious, like a secret waiting to be unraveled. You keep moving, the wall disappearing behind you, the snow thickening, falling now in fat, lazy flakes that stick to your lashes and melt on your cheeks. The dunes feel closer, heavier, the sky lower, as if the world is folding in on itself. A faint sound rises, so soft you almost miss it. The creak of wood, slow and steady, rhythmic as a rocking chair in an empty room. You follow the sound, your feet slipping a little on the damp sand, and there it is. A cart, half buried in the snow, its wheels caked with ice, its frame tilted at a strange angle, as if it's caught mid-collapse. The cart is old, its wood darkened and splintered, the iron bands rusted, but it's still intact, still holding its shape against the weight of time and weather. You step closer, brushing the snow from its surface, and notice something resting inside. A bundle of cloth, tied tightly with a fraying cord, the edges stiff with frost. You hesitate, then carefully pull the bundle free. The fabric crackles under your hands, and when you loosen the knot, a small clay jar tumbles out, followed by a handful of dried herbs, their scent faint but lingering. Mint, maybe, or sage, or something sharper, almost peppery. There's a slip of parchment, too, folded and worn, but when you open it, the writing has long since faded into nothing more than faint lines, like the echo of a forgotten message. You tuck it back into the cloth, feeling a quiet sense of loss, but also a strange, soft gratitude. Like you've stumbled across someone's story, even if you can't quite read it. You glance around, half expecting to see someone nearby. A traveler returning to claim their cart, a merchant shaking the snow from their shoulders. But the dunes are empty, quiet except for the steady whisper of the wind. The cart creaks again, the sound low and tired, and you imagine it groaning under the weight of years, of journeys started and never finished, of cargoes half delivered, of stories left unfinished. You step away, the bundle tucked under your arm, and the snow swirls around you, erasing the lines of the cart, blurring its edges, softening it into the landscape until it becomes just another shape in the dunes, another part of the desert's quiet memory. The wind hums in your ears, and you walk on, the cold biting at your fingers, your breath hanging in the air, the snow settling on your shoulders like a thin, damp blanket. The world feels softer now, quieter, and you wonder, how many stories have been left behind in this desert, half buried by sand and snow, waiting for someone to find them, to listen, to remember. You keep walking, the dunes stretching out ahead, the snow falling steady, and the quiet settling around you like a soft, familiar sigh. Your feet feel heavier now, each step a small effort, the dampness creeping up your legs like a quiet thief stealing away your warmth. The snow has thickened into a soft, relentless fall, each flake a tiny, cold kiss against your skin. It clings to the folds of your robe, weighing you down, but you keep moving. Because what else is there to do in a place like this, where time itself seems to slow to the rhythm of the falling snow? Ahead, you catch a glint, faint, but enough to pull you forward, your breath puffing in soft, steady clouds. You brush the snow from your sleeves, squinting against the soft glare. And there it is, a set of small metal tools laid out on a flat stone, each one dusted in frost. A chisel, a small hammer, a slender awl, its tip gleaming under a delicate crust of ice. You kneel, brushing the snow aside, and notice faint grooves etched into the stone beneath them, lines, shapes, shallow impressions, as if someone had been working on a carving, then simply stopped. You wonder who they were. A stonemason, perhaps, chipping away at a block of limestone, pausing for tea and never returning. A traveler marking a message for those who might come after. Some historians argue that these small tool sites are evidence of ancient way stations, places where workers would rest between long treks, carving symbols to mark their passing. Others think they were just random scatterings of objects left behind by nomads or traders. And of course, there's always someone ready to suggest they were offerings to forgotten gods, left as a quiet plea for safe passage through the harsh desert. You pick up the chisel, its metal cold and heavy in your hand, and feel the weight of all those possibilities pressing in. You set it down again, careful, almost reverent, and step back, leaving the tools as you found them, half buried, half remembered, a quiet mystery folded into the snow. The wind shifts, carrying the faint scent of smoke again, mixed with something sharp, like ozone before a storm, or the faint tang of wet stone. You pause, tilting your head, and in the distance, you see it. A low, smoldering fire, just a flicker of orange against the white and gray. You move toward it, your steps slow, cautious, half expecting it to vanish like a mirage. But it stays, steady and real, and as you get closer, you see a figure hunched over the flames. They're wrapped in a thick cloak, hood pulled low, hands stretched toward the small fire. They don't look up as you approach, but you catch the faint sound of humming, a low, tuneless sound, barely audible over the wind. You stand at a respectful distance, watching the flames lick at the air, the smoke curling up into the sky like a question without an answer. You imagine how many fires like this have been built in the desert, small, stubborn points of warmth in a sea of cold and sand. Traders huddled over embers, warming their hands. Pilgrims resting beneath the stars. Soldiers counting their coins, their eyes darting toward the horizon. Historians still debate how people survived the cold in these lands, how they carried their warmth with them in the form of spices, hot stones, and small fires that flickered against the vast dark. You lower yourself onto the sand, close enough to feel the faint warmth of the fire, but not so close as to intrude. The figure doesn't speak, doesn't acknowledge you, but somehow their presence feels reassuring. Like you've stumbled into a small pocket of safety, a pause in the endless stretch of snow and time. The snowflakes drift lazily into the fire, hissing as they melt, tiny pops and crackles that seem louder in the quiet. You find yourself watching the flames, the way they curl and dance, the way they flicker against the falling snow. It's mesmerizing, this small, stubborn glow, in the middle of so much cold. And for a moment, you let yourself just be. You stop walking. You stop wondering. You let the fire warm your face, the snow settle on your shoulders, and the desert hum around you in its slow, patient way. The figure shifts slightly, the sound of their cloak rustling like dry leaves, and you feel their presence beside you. Solid, quiet, real. There's no need for words, just the fire, the snow, the hush of the wind, and the soft, steady rhythm of your own breath, rising and falling, blending with the quiet heart of the desert. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. To the fire, to the snow, to the stories the desert might still be trying to tell you, hidden in the cold and the quiet, waiting for you to hear them. You open your eyes slowly, and the fire has faded to a dim glow, the coals barely pulsing in the pale dawn light. The figure by the fire is gone, vanished like a dream slipping out of reach, leaving only a faint impression in the snow where they sat. For a moment, you wonder if they were ever really there at all, or just another trick of the desert, a quiet presence conjured up by the cold and the endless falling snow. You stand, stretching, feeling the stiffness settle in your limbs like an old ache, and glance up at the sky. The clouds have thinned, revealing streaks of pale gold and silver where the sun tries to break through. The snow still falls, but softer now, like the desert is sighing itself back to sleep. You take a breath, deep and slow, and the air tastes clean, sharp, and a little sweet, like you're breathing in the quiet of the world itself. Your feet carry you onward, though you're not sure where you're going anymore. The dunes stretch out, soft and endless, the snow catching the light in faint glimmers. And there, ahead of you, half buried in a shallow drift, is something that makes you stop. A bundle of papyrus scrolls tied with a fraying cord, their edges stiff with frost. You kneel, brushing the snow away, and pick one up, careful, slow, as if the cold might shatter it like glass. The surface is brittle, the ink faded, but you can make out faint lines, shapes, maybe even words, though they're too worn to read. Still, the weight of it feels heavy in your hands, like holding a piece of someone's life, someone's thoughts caught in a moment of ink and time. You imagine a scribe, hunched over a desk by the light of an oil lamp, his breath fogging in the cold as he scratches letters onto the page, the smell of smoke and papyrus thick in the air. Did he ever think his words would end up here, scattered in the snow, waiting for someone like you to find them? Some scholars argue that the desert has always been a keeper of forgotten stories, that scrolls, texts, even entire libraries were lost to shifting sands and sudden storms. Others dismiss these tales, calling them romantic nonsense. After all, they say, paper doesn't last long out here. But as you hold the scroll in your hands, you can't help but wonder. What if the desert remembers more than we think? You tuck the scroll carefully back into the bundle, wrapping it tight, and set it gently back into the snow, as if returning it to the earth. The wind hums low and steady, and you stand, brushing the frost from your knees, your breath rising in small, quiet clouds. As you walk, you spot more fragments. An ivory comb, its teeth worn smooth by time, a broken bead, deep blue and glinting faintly in the pale light. A rusted amulet shaped like a tiny scarab. Each one feels like a whisper, a soft tug from the past saying, "I was here, I mattered," and you listen, letting their quiet presence settle into your heart like small glowing embers. The dunes rise and fall, and you begin to notice something strange, subtle, but unmistakable. The snow is melting, just a little, seeping into the sand in dark, wet patches. The air feels warmer, the light sharper. The desert, it seems, is waking up. The snow won't last much longer. You pause, taking it all in. The snow-covered dunes, the soft gray sky, the strange, quiet beauty of it all. And for a moment you feel a pang, a bittersweet tug in your chest, because soon this will be gone. The snow will melt, the tracks will vanish, the scrolls will sink back into the earth, and no one will believe you, not really. Who would? But you'll know. You were here. You walked the dunes under the snow. You felt the cold bite your skin, heard the whisper of forgotten voices, and watched the desert glow under a blanket of white. You stand a little longer, letting the wind brush against your face, the last flakes of snow melting on your skin, like quiet farewells. And then, with a slow breath, you turn and keep walking, leaving the past to settle back into the dunes, the snow fading gently behind you. The snow is softer now, a faint shimmer in the air, barely more than a breath against your skin. It drifts down in slow, lazy spirals, catching in the creases of your robe, clinging to the tips of your fingers, melting almost as soon as it lands. The dunes ahead are shifting again, no longer smooth and white, but darkening at the edges, the sand beginning to peek through in patches, like the desert is quietly reclaiming its familiar shape. The wind hums a little warmer now, brushing across your face with the faintest hint of moisture, as if the desert is exhaling after holding its breath for so long. You stop for a moment, letting the quiet settle in, the weight of everything you've seen, everything you felt, folding around you like a soft, heavy blanket. The world feels smaller somehow, and softer too, as if all the sharp edges have been gently worn down by the snow, the cold, the quiet hours of wandering. You glance behind you, and your footprints are already fading, the wind tugging at their edges, the snow filling them in, little by little. Soon, there will be no trace you were ever here at all. And yet, you know you were. You can feel it in your bones, in the quiet ache of your muscles, in the lingering taste of cold air on your tongue. You can feel it in the little treasures you found. A broken comb, a carved scarab, a forgotten scroll half lost in the snow. They're not much, maybe, but they're proof in their own small, quiet way that stories have weight, that places hold memories, and that even the most impossible moments, like snow in the Egyptian desert, can be real, if only for a little while. You walk on, the dunes softening around you, the snow thinning into a fine mist that glimmers faintly in the rising light. The sun is breaking through the clouds now, shy and pale, casting long shadows across the sand. The desert feels like it's waking up, stretching, sighing, letting the snow melt into the earth, a memory slipping quietly away. You pause at the crest of a dune, looking out over the wide, endless stretch of land. And for a moment, It almost feels like you can hear the heartbeat of the desert itself. Steady, slow, patient. A soft pulse beneath your feet, a quiet hum in the air, a rhythm older than any city, older than any empire, older than even the stories carved into the stones you've touched. You take a slow breath, letting it fill your lungs, letting it settle into the spaces between your ribs, and you close your eyes for a moment. The cold is still there, but it feels softer now, less biting, more like a memory than a sharp sting. The snow falls in faint, shimmering flakes, a few landing on your lashes, melting against your skin. The wind whispers around you, brushing against your ear like a soft, careful voice, and you think, maybe you could stay here forever, just standing, just breathing, just being part of this strange, impossible moment, but the world calls you forward. Gently, quietly, it's time to move on. You take one last look at the dunes, at the faint, fading snow, at the way the sunlight dances on the wet sand, and you feel a quiet, deep gratitude settle in your chest for the cold, for the snow, for the quiet stories hidden in the desert's bones, for the chance to be here, just for a little while. You turn, your steps slow and steady, and walk away, leaving the desert to its quiet, endless dreaming. And as you go, the snow fades behind you. The dunes whisper back into their golden shapes, and the world folds in around you, soft and slow, as if tucking you in for a long, peaceful rest. The wind hums. The snow drifts down, a little slower now. The desert sighs, quiet and content. And you close your eyes and let it all slip away, a soft, slow smile curling at the edge of your lips, the cold melting into warmth, the stories fading into dreams.